Hi, I'm Ed Jaeger, chair of the Subrogation group at White & Williams. Welcome to Subro Sessions. You'll hear from various attorneys in our department discussing the latest legal updates, news, trends, as well as strategies for litigation, mediation, and recovery. For you today, Matt Ferrie, Gus Sara, and Lian Skaf are together again. If you have any questions or suggestions for future topics, email us at www.info@whiteandwilliams.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Subro Sessions. Once again, I'm Matt Ferrie. I'm a partner in the White & Williams Subrogation Department. And once again, I'm joined by my colleagues, Gus Sara and Lian Skaf.
Hello. How you doing?
And before we get started, I just want to say that since the last time we did a podcast, Gus and Lian have both been named partner in White & Williams. An extremely well-deserved accomplishment for both of them. So while on past episodes I've called them my friends, my collaborators, my colleagues, and a few other things, it's my pleasure today to call them my partners. So Subro Sessions, shout out to Gus and Lian.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
So today's episode is going to be a little bit different in that, first of all, we're going to be joined by a few more attorneys from our office. We're going to be joined by Ryan Bennett, Melissa Kenney, John Millis, and Blaze Richards. And we're all going to be talking about one particular experience that we shared together. Specifically, in October of 2021, all of us went to the Bergenfield Fire Training Center in New Jersey, and we were able to put on firefighting equipment. We went into a room that was actually on fire with a lot of safeguards in place, so we were never actually in danger. And we got to see how different sprinkler heads activate depending on how close they are to flames or heat. A few of us also got to operate a fire hose. What was great about this is while we deal with all kinds of property damage cases, we primarily deal with fire cases. Many of our expert witnesses are cause and origin experts who are either active fire marshals or former fire marshals. Many of our fact witnesses are firefighters who responded to the scene. So for us to get a little taste of their world, see what they see, do what they do in some small way, really helps us for our own cases in terms of understanding them, in terms of how to explain them to others, and really making them come alive. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. And Lian, do you want to tell us a little bit about your perspective on it?
Sure, Matt. So I'm going to talk about a little bit the gear. So first things first when it comes to firefighting is the gear. There's a lot of it, a lot more than you think, and it's a lot heavier than you think. So if you're going into a burning building, risking your life, if that's not enough, try doing it with 50 pounds on your back, or a fogged up windshield, or boots that weigh you down like you're stuck in the mud. Then there's the added pressure of making sure you have the gear on correctly for your own safety. You can't have any open seams between the numerous apparatus or apparati or whatever that word is, you know what I mean, or else you'll be breathing in heavy smoke. So we got to put this gear on when we were on site there. And, although we took some cool photos of ourselves, it really pointed out how much goes into firefighters, making sure that they are prepared to save others and properly outfitted to keep themselves safe. One thing I found particularly interesting was the device that tells you that you're running low on air. So this is kind of like a little buzzer that
useful device.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like a little buzzer that also vibrates. That's on your tank that's hanging on your chest when you're wearing all the gear. Something you never really think about. So if you're not on edge enough, from having to fight a fire, now your whole torso is buzzing because you're running out of air. I mean, it's intense stuff.
So there's a quote from a movie I always liked called Ladder 49. And the quote goes, "How is it that firefighters run into a burning building when everyone else is running out?" Courage is the answer. One of the great things about this experience is that we were able to really feel what that quote means. Being in a room that was on fire is not like it is in the movies. You can't see much of anything. It's dark, it's disorienting, it's hot. As Lian pointed out, the equipment is heavy and uncomfortable. The self-contained breathing apparatus, although the buzzer is helpful, is unnatural. Communication is extremely difficult. Every instinct you have tells you shouldn't be there and you need to get the hell out. Firefighters go further inside, saving lives, saving families, saving property and beloved possessions. What firefighters do is incredible. And what's even more amazing to me, and I obviously knew it before, but you appreciate it even more when you do something like this, so many of them are just unpaid volunteers. Gus, why don't you tell us a little about your perspective?
Yes. So one of the instructors, in addition to being a fire trainer, is also a fire protection expert. So a part of the training included a demonstration where the instructors set up a sprinkler head and lit a fire a few feet below the sprinkler head. And this occurred inside of a garage, and we were outside of the garage, but still very close to where this was happening, and we were able to see the sprinkler head in pretty close proximity. Many of the losses that we investigate involve sprinkler activations, but I personally never witnessed a sprinkler head activate. So it was very interesting for me to see this happen. The sprinkler head was rated for 155 degrees, which I believe is considered an intermediate sprinkler head. I was actually shocked to see how long it took for the head to activate. The fire got really close to the head, yet it did not activate until the smoke started to come down from the ceiling. I learned that the heat generated from the smoke that accumulates at the ceiling and comes down is really what usually activates a sprinkler head. The head was clamped onto a ladder. That's how they set it up, because the flame was pretty close to the head, and I was surprised that it had not yet activated. And the pressure from the activation caused the ladder to fall over backwards. It was a really intense event, and so much water sprayed out, which made me appreciate why there's usually so much property damage after a sprinkler activation. And the instructor reminded us that the sprinkler system are life safety systems. The main priority of the system is to save life, not property. As a property subrogation attorney, this was a very valuable and eye-opening experience for me. Now, Melissa, you want to tell us about your experience?
So for me, the live burn training was a great experience, both professionally and on a personal level. From a professional standpoint, it was beneficial for many reasons. As a subrogation attorney, I investigate a lot of residential and commercial fire losses. And when we're investigating fire losses, we're always trying to identify the area of origin, the point of origin, the ignition source, and the first fuel ignited. And in order to do that, you really do need a basic understanding of fire behavior. And we really touched on that at the live burn training. Under live fire conditions, we were able to observe how quickly a fire can develop. We analyzed fire behavior in the burning building, and we really explored the relationship between heat, fuel, oxygen, and how those three components can really have a significant impact on the way that a fire progresses. We also discussed what factors responding fire departments will consider when they are responding to a fire. And that really means whether they're deciding to use a defensive or offensive fire attack. They'll often use defensive fire attacks when you're in a situation where the fire is pretty well developed and it's likely unsafe for fire department officials to enter the building. They'll use offensive fire attacks in situations where maybe they need to rescue people that are trapped inside, and they'll use handheld hose lines to protect search and rescue crews that are entering the building to rescue those individuals. And then just on a personal level, I think it was a really great experience because it gave me an overall newfound respect for firefighters in general. The equipment that they wear is extremely heavy. We all had to wear the personal protective equipment in order to enter the live burn building. And it was much, much heavier than I expected. You think about firefighters having to wear that for long periods of time is just incredible. And it just really puts into perspective how firefighters are able to somehow stay calm and focused in situations like this when you're entering into a burning building. So overall, I thought it was a great experience. I'd love to do it again. And I think that we do intend to do that in the future.
Next up is Ryan Bennett with our department. Ryan, tell us what you thought about the day.
Thanks, Matt. I first want to say that it was exciting joining the White and Williams team soon before we got to go up to the fire training center. So it was exciting to see that the department has the resources to put some associates and some of the attorneys in a position to experience something like that. But I thought it was interesting seeing the fire professionals, the firefighters go into a building, and while they have all of the gear on, like Lian was saying, they also have the presence of mind to kind of note what they see in each room and, take that knowledge when they leave the building to, be deposed and just give their notes on really what they saw in each room. And it's filled with black smoke and it's filled with debris, and they still have the presence of mind to say, okay, this could have been this could potentially be the point of origin, or this is where the fire started. So, it's impressive to see that a lot of these firefighters, like Matt said, who are volunteers, are also, trained to keep their head when they enter a situation like this. I also got to use the fire hose at the end of the demonstration, and seeing how much power the hose has when you're using it is something else. So that was pretty exciting. It was a fun event.
Next, we'll hear from Jonathan Millis of our department on his thoughts on the experience. What did you think, John?
Well, I've always had a tremendous amount of respect for firefighters, but this was the first time that I think I've ever had any understanding of just how serious it is when they're inside of a house that's on fire. I mean, the first thing was, as you said, how uncomfortable of the equipment was. I mean, it was difficult to walk. It was difficult to turn around. And on top of that, I mean, I was surprised how quick the smoke filled the room and you could barely even see your hand in front of you. The first thing I thought was how difficult it must be for the firefighters to make decisions and communicate in those conditions. And it was just a really eye-opening experience. It's certainly one that I'm thankful for.
Thanks, John. Yeah, so a lot of great comments so far. The last of our attorneys who we're going to hear from today regarding his thoughts on the experience is Blaze Richards. Blaze, how do you feel about it?
I really enjoyed the moment when the whole team was able to get in the structure where they ultimately light the fires. The fire spreads a lot faster than you'd expect. The smoke engulfed the room in a matter of minutes, and the fire instructors were able to sort of show us how different factors can play into how the fire spreads. The room was equipped with steel windows, and at the beginning, the windows were shut, and the room got dark almost instantly. After that, the instructors were able to open up the windows, and we got some sense of how air impacts the fire in both allowing it to grow and smoke to clear out of the room, so we had a little bit better vision. And it'll stick with me standing in that room and starting to hear the alarms go off. All the tanks are equipped with alarms if the firefighters haven't moved for a certain period of time. And since we were all sort of huddled together, it sort of brought a real life perspective in that these alarms would normally go off if something might have happened to a firefighter to alert his other teammates. So it was certainly an eye-opening experience in that aspect as well.
Thanks a lot, Blaze. So we're going to wrap things up now, and just a couple of quick comments I want to make. One is that although he couldn't join us for the podcast today, also present that day was Chris Konzelman, who is one of the partners in our department. And Chris actually is a fire captain with the Moorestown Fire Department. So while we all got to play pretend firefighter that day, Chris actually lives that life. And for me personally, to see what he is doing when he's not subrogating cases was pretty impressive. Also, I wanted to follow up on Gus's point regarding sprinkler heads. That was very eye-opening to actually see flames within a few inches of a sprinkler head and have the sprinkler head not activate right away because the flames were not changing the temperature of the room enough yet for the sprinkler head's activation temperature to be reached. So it was just really interesting to see when a sprinkler head activates and when it doesn't activate. And also, and I'm not sure if Gus touched on this or not, even when it does activate, it doesn't really put out the fire. It just controls the fire. So that was interesting to see in person as well, that largely the role of the sprinkler system is to contain the fire until further firefighting suppression efforts can be brought to that area or that floor. Last thing I have to say is if you see a firefighter, please thank them. We truly do. We owe them more than you can imagine. What they do is incredible.
Yeah, and I want to second that thanks, and specifically to the Bergenfield Fire Department for setting this up for us. Also, even though it may not pertain directly to what we do in our subrogation investigation, I think it's good to understand what others in our general professional world go through. Even if it's adjusters getting estimates, insureds dealing with life-altering losses, or firefighters trying to protect the community, it's good to have what we do in context.
Yeah, and I just want to add, I was very grateful for the experience. It not only gave me a glimpse of what it's like to fight a fire, but also provided valuable pointers about fire investigations. As Blaze was saying, we were able to actually see how the fire changed its pattern when windows were open, and in subrogation, when we're investigating fires, we often see that someone opens the door and runs out or tries to open the garage door, and then the trajectory of the fire just drastically changes. So it was really good to actually see that in action. I thought it was a valuable demonstration for me as a subrogation professional, and I hope we get to do more trainings like that in the future.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for your contributions here today. Again, great experience we all had, and really nice to hear everyone's perspectives on it. And to our audience, thanks again for joining us, and we'll catch you next time with Subro Sessions.
Thank you for listening to Subro Sessions. Stay tuned for more episodes from the Subrogation Group at White & Williams, and visit whiteandwilliams.com to learn more about the firm, our group, and this podcast.